And now, the general weather around Alaska.
Welcome to Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan coming to you from the National Weather Service in Alaska region on this Friday, August 2nd, 2024. And if you'd like additional weather information on what I provide in this YouTube video, you can go to weather.gov. That is the National Weather Service's online presence. It'll bring you to a map of the continental U.S. with Hawaii and Alaska to the lower left and tabs for the various territories. I like to just give a summary of what's happening in the lower 48 because sometimes we have some rather significant weather taking shape, and it also can influence the weather all the way up in Alaska because everything within the atmosphere, ocean, land interactions are related. We do have a tropical storm warning for a disturbance that's coming out of Cuba that will impact southwest Florida later in the day, Saturday into Sunday afternoon, with some heavier rainfall that could lead to some flooding and some gusty winds upwards of tropical storm force, maybe up around 50, 60 miles an hour. We have heat advisories and excessive heat warnings along the mid-Atlantic as well as down through the deep south areas of the west, including red flag warnings for heat and the possibility of dry thunderstorms in the Pacific Northwest. Also excessive heat warnings for areas around Death Valley, Las Vegas. Earlier in July, Las Vegas set their all-time record high at 120 degrees on July 7th. Well, here in Alaska, we are going to start to see some drier and warmer weather take shape over this weekend across the southern and eastern mainland and then over much of the Panhandle. And that will continue into the Panhandle through at least the middle of next week. And we're also watching the Suicide Basin ice dam above Juneau there in the Mendenhall Lake and River. There is the potential for flooding once that ice dam releases. That hasn't happened yet, but it is being closely monitored. And those of you that do live along Mendenhall Lake and especially the river, be aware that right now the current forecasts are for when that thing finally does release, it could result in some moderate flooding, maybe worse, because last year we had that catastrophic flood when the ice dam released at the end of July. So definitely be vigilant there along the river. Fire danger will also be increasing along the Alcan border, the eastern mainland, as we go through this weekend and especially early middle part of next week. Places like the Yukon Flats and Eagle will be getting back up into the 80s with this warmer temperatures of the ridge of high pressure building in there over the east side of the state into the Gulf. Now on the other side of the state, cool, wet, breezy conditions at times along the Alaska Peninsula, much of the west coast even extending into the western interior this weekend all the way through next weekend. It's not going to be rainy and windy all of the time, but definitely a wetter pattern there. And looking at the central interior, we've had a stalled frontal boundary up there in the central interior, Nenana, some rain and light fog this afternoon, 50 degrees. Fairbanks area has picked up nearly a half inch of rainfall with this system in the past day and a half. Further west, Scammon Bay, lower Yukon Delta, light rain and fog, 51. You're going to see periods of rain and breezy conditions this weekend, and that'll be on and off next week into next weekend as a rather gloomy, cool and wet and occasionally windy pattern will be in place over the west and southwest portions of the state. Kodiak, mostly sunny, a thin veil of some high clouds. Get out and enjoy that because more rain is on the way later Sunday and into Monday. Systems that'll be coming in off the North Pacific across the Alaska Peninsula and then riding up along through the southwest, western interiors and coastline. And then finally, Juneau, mostly cloudy, 64 this mid-Friday afternoon. You're going to see more in the way of sunshine this weekend and early next week with temperatures in the 70s. Be a few areas up around 80 in the Panhandle here, I'm sure, by the mid part of next week. So where do we have things going on? We have special weather statement for wind and rain along Norton Sound, St. Lawrence Island, the lower Yukon Delta. This area will see episodes of precipitation and wind coming up through there this weekend and again on and off through the upcoming week and next weekend. This special weather statement is for the Suicide Basin ice dam that is expected to release at some point. We don't know exactly when, but there are signs. What they're looking for is the release to start coming out under the bottom of the ice dam, because we have the potential for a significant release of pent-up water. And to kind of give you the layout, Juneau is down along here in the map. And above Juneau, we have the Mendenhall River, Mendenhall Lake, and then the Mendenhall Glacier. And it's this glacier, the Mendenhall Glacier, that is helping to dam up this Suicide Basin. Water is able to fill within this glacial dam region. And then over time, the water can overtop the ice dam or it can go underneath, but it's when it goes underneath that it really gets the flow going. That hasn't happened yet as of this Friday afternoon, but it could happen at any point now over the next several days, and when it does, it could potentially be a significant release. The current forecast is that once that does happen, there could be some moderate flooding along the Mendenhall River below Mendenhall Lake. Hopefully it's not as bad as what it was last year when we had the catastrophic flood, but nevertheless, those of you in these areas along Mendenhall Lake and Mendenhall River, pay close attention to what the latest forecasts are regarding that glacial dam release. Fire danger will be creeping up later this weekend and especially next week. Right now, we still have some areas of very high fire danger, upper Tanana Valley, near the Alcan border, but we'll start to see that appear again in areas like the Yukon Flats around Eagle, as we have this ridge of high pressure that's going to build up across the Gulf and the ridge nudge upward into the southeast mainland and kind of along areas of the Panhandle. Warmer temperatures, as I was saying earlier, 70s, some 80s. It'll likely get into at least the mid-80s. Yukon Flats around Eagle here, early middle part of next week. And then you may have heard Anchorage area, the forecast office has postponed updating its forecast zones. That was supposed to happen on September 10th, but it's going to be postponed now to March 25th. I want to make sure everything works with all the computer technology and the zone coding. It's very complicated and tricky. So that has been postponed now until March 25th, where we'll start to see those more broken out zones than in the past to allow for a little more forecast detail. But it takes a little time to get these technical side of things worked out. Looking at satellite imagery, so we have this frontal boundary that's stalled out across the central interior. It's really not going south much more, but along it, especially along north of the Alaska Range, we've had areas of rain, breezy conditions. That's going to begin to let up. There's also an area here of rain that's going to be enhanced from warmer, moist air coming in off of the Bering Sea associated with the system. And as a result, that'll get another area of rain going around this area for later tonight and Saturday. And what's going to happen is the ridge that's out over the Gulf, it's going to nudge northward up into the southeast mainland. So that's going to help areas around Cook Inlet, Prince William Sound, eastern interior to dry out, more sunshine. Sunday is going to be a fabulous day around Anchorage and much of the eastern mainland, as well as the Panhandle. You're going to see increasing sun and warmer temperatures. A number of areas will see temperatures back around or even above 70 degrees. And looking at the current synoptic setting, so here's the surface reflection of that ridge of high pressure mid-upper levels. There's that stalled out front that's washing out. Here's a low out in the central Bering, not a strong system, but it is working its way eastward. And it has plenty of warm air out over at least the lower Bering back toward the Aleutians. And as that works its way northeastward, another low is going to come in off the Kamchatka coast with a little cooler air, but this front just washes out later tonight, early Saturday. As the ridge gets better organized, we find the ridge nudging up into the eastern interior. Saturday afternoon, we have another low down here in the North Pacific. This low is going to link up with this front over the Bering, and that's going to just pivot another round of moisture, rainfall, and breezier conditions, Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, as we get into Sunday. And then that'll all rotate up along Bristol Bay, southwest interior, on up along the west coast as we go into early next week. And here it is Sunday, the ridge, the surface ridge out over the Gulf. If we are to look at the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere, this ridge would extend northward like this. So this means dry, warm in these regions, including the Panhandle. Here comes that next low Sunday afternoon as it's being drawn northward and moisture is being fed up toward the Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island. This low is going to lift northeastward. And again, the west side of the state, including the Alaska Peninsula, was where the cool, dreary, and wet weather will be, along with some gustier winds at times. Low temperatures for Saturday morning We're looking at a mix of upper 40s to some low mid 50s in the Panhandle, as well as in through areas of south central, coolest places like Copper River Basin, 45 at Glen Allen. Saturday afternoon temperatures should get back up across south central, 65 to near 70. I'm going to be optimistic. If you get any sun, you're going to be a bit warmer than these readings. And then back here through the Panhandle, you start to see the hints of warming. Ketchikan, 73, 71 Craig, up near 70 at Skagway. And then Sunday morning lows very similar to the Saturday morning lows. But here come Sunday afternoon, you'll start to see the influence of that high drying out conditions, more sunshine, warmer temperatures. 70s across much of the Panhandle. 76 there at Glen Allen. 67 at Anchorage. I think it'll be closer to 70. But definitely some warmer temperatures. Further south, you'll have cloud cover and rain developing there, and Kodiak Island's only 58. For the north and central areas of the mainland, lows generally in the 40s along the Yukon River Valley, out toward the Seward Peninsula, 30s along the Arctic coast and along the spine there of the Brooks Range. And then temperatures Saturday afternoon still kept down with some cloud cover, but as this ridge nudges northward and especially over the eastern interior, we're going to see warming temperatures by Sunday. Lows generally in the 40s anticipated. There is a push of milder air coming north, so even along the Arctic coast, lows only in the 40s there Sunday morning. And for Sunday afternoon, look how quickly temperatures warm. Could even flirt with 80 at, say, Northway, Eagle, even, say, places like Fort Yukon and around Tok and those areas. So definitely warmer, and it'll even be warmer than that come Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. Coolest readings west side of the state, 50s, maybe 60, Emonic, even up there at Shishmaref, but still not as warm as the eastern interior. And across the southwest interior, lows tonight generally upper 40s to near 50, extending down along through the eastern Aleutians. And for Saturday afternoon, we're looking at some cloud cover, areas of rain, not raining all areas yet because there's a couple of different waves that have to come through, but generally 50s, a few areas if you can get a little sun, maybe 69, near 70 at McGrath. Otherwise, 60-ish, Cold Bay down toward Dutch Harbor. And for Sunday morning lows, generally above 50 in many areas, with exception right along the immediate coast like McCormick, 45. Near or just above 50 along the Alaska Peninsula and eastern Aleutians. And Sunday afternoon, though more moisture is going to be lifting northward, we expect highs generally to remain upper 50s along the Alaska Peninsula and maybe 66 around Bethel, 60 in Emonic. But that's about as warm as you're going to see. And probably don't want to see this, but there's pretty sharp divide in where we expect above and below normal temperatures. A very strong signature as we go through August 8th and the 12th that temperatures will be below normal over southern southwest Alaska, especially west side of Cook Inlet, Kodiak Island up through Dillingham, south or the western arm of the Alaska Range. Expect below normal temperatures due to cloud cover and areas of precipitation. With the ridging over northwest Canada, that favors the Panhandle and the eastern and northeastern mainland to be above normal, including areas along the central eastern north slope as we go through August 8th and 12th. And then precipitation overall will be above normal in the mainland, especially areas around Cook Inlet and extending on up into the interior and west side of the state. The best chance of below normal precipitation and drier conditions with those warmer temperatures, with the ridging over western Canada, would place then the entire southeast there across the Panhandle with drier than normal conditions then there as we go through the period of August 8th and 12th.